I didn't expect my day to start with a question like that. One minute I was watering the tomatoes in our little backyard garden, the sun warm on my shoulders, and the next my neighbor leaned in with a smile that didn't match the words coming out of her mouth. She asked if she could borrow my husband, not for tools, not for help with her lawn, but for a night. Have you ever been so blindsided that your brain just stalls? Like the words go in, but your mind refuses to file them anywhere. That was me, standing there with the hose still running, water spilling over the flower bed, wondering if I'd misheard. My name's Claire. And I guess you could say this is the kind of story people whisper about in the grocery store aisle, but never believe actually happens next door. It started as a casual chat over the fence. Sarah, that's my neighbor, was venting about her husband again. She'd been doing that a lot lately, complaints about his laziness, his stubbornness, the way he barely looked at her anymore. I'd nod, murmur sympathetic things, try not to take sides, but that day she leaned closer, lowered her voice, and said something that made the air between us shift. She told me, very matter-of-factly, that he wasn't good in bed, that no matter what she tried, nothing changed. And then she said she knew my husband, David, was different. She could just tell. I remember feeling this strange cocktail of emotions in that moment: embarrassment, disbelief, and something else I didn't want to admit, curiosity. Before I could even respond, she added, "I'm serious. Just once. I'll never tell a soul. Think of it like a favor." I laughed at first. It wasn't a real laugh, more the kind you do when you don't know how else to react. But she didn't laugh with me. She just stared, like she'd rehearsed the whole thing in her head. That's when I realized she wasn't joking. The promise of secrecy slipped into her tone, smooth and tempting. "No one will know, Claire. Not even my husband. Just you, me, and David. That's it." I stood there gripping the fence, heart thudding, wondering if she was insane, or if I was for not immediately walking away. And here's the thing. Some part of me, the part I usually keep locked up tight, didn't feel entirely horrified. For the rest of that day, her words replayed in my mind, not just what she said, but how she said it, calm, confident, like she already knew I'd say yes. I didn't tell David that night. I didn't tell anyone. But as I lay in bed beside him, staring at the ceiling, I kept hearing her voice. It was the kind of proposition you can't unhear. And the strangest part, I couldn't decide if I wanted to forget it or find out what would happen if I didn't. The days after Sarah's proposition felt different. It's strange how a single sentence can change the way you look at someone, or in this case, two people. Every time I saw her walking to her car, I caught myself wondering if she was thinking about it too, wondering if she was sizing me up, waiting for my answer. David, on the other hand, was oblivious. He'd come home from work, kiss me on the forehead, and ask what was for dinner like nothing had shifted. But for me, it had. Even the way I looked at him changed. I found myself thinking about the details Sarah had somehow decided she knew, things she had no business imagining. I told myself it was ridiculous. People don't just loan out their husbands. That's not real life. But the thought didn't fade. It dug in like a splinter. And maybe, if I'm being honest, part of me liked knowing someone else wanted what I had. It started subtly. The next time Sarah and I spoke, she didn't bring it up directly. Instead, she let the conversation slide toward intimacy, tossing little comments like, "Some women don't even know what they're missing," or "It's not cheating if everyone agrees, right?" I didn't commit to anything. I just listened. And that's where the real danger began, because listening is halfway to agreeing. Inside my own home, I was conflicted. Some nights I'd catch myself studying David the way someone sizes up a prize before lending it out. His broad shoulders, the way his hands could be both gentle and firm, how he made me laugh even when I didn't want to. I'd wonder how it would feel to watch Sarah see those same things. But other nights, guilt crept in like a draft under the door. What kind of wife even considers something like this? Then one Saturday afternoon, it became less of an idea and more of a plan. Sarah invited me over for coffee. Just us. We sat at her kitchen table, steam curling from our mugs, and she leaned in like she had a secret to share. She told me it didn't have to be weird, that she'd never step out of line, that she'd never speak a word to her own husband. She even used the word safe, like we were talking about lending someone a sweater, not a man. I asked her why me, why David. She shrugged and said, because I trust you. And somehow that landed heavier than the rest. Trust, as if what she was asking was some kind of sacred arrangement instead of whatever it really was. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake next to David, listening to the slow rhythm of his breathing, my mind painting pictures I shouldn't have let in. And for the first time, I thought about what it would take to make it happen, the logistics, the timing, the unspoken rules we'd have to keep. It wasn't just a wild suggestion anymore. It was becoming real, and the scariest part was that I didn't feel scared enough to stop it. The night it happened didn't feel like a thunderclap. It felt ordinary. Maybe that's what made it so surreal. How normal everything seemed, even as we all knew what was about to happen. David thought we were just stopping by Sarah's to drop off some boxes she'd borrowed. I hadn't told him the truth. Not all of it, only that Sarah needed help with something, and asked if he could spare a little time. Her house smelled faintly of vanilla, and something sharper, maybe nerves, maybe perfume. She greeted us like nothing was unusual, but I noticed how her eyes lingered on David just a fraction longer than normal. We talked for a bit, small talk layered over tension, so thick I could feel it pressing against my ribs. My hands wouldn't stay still, smoothing my hair, adjusting my sleeves, tapping the coffee table, and then somehow, there we were. Sarah's voice dropped, softer now, the way someone speaks when they're about to cross a line. So is this okay? She asked me, not him. David looked at me, confusion flickering in his eyes. I met his gaze, and in that split second, I knew I could stop it. I could laugh, make a joke, drag him out the door, and pretend the whole thing never happened. But I didn't. I nodded, once, and just like that, the ground tilted. I won't give you details. That's not the point of this confession. What I will tell you is that I didn't feel what I thought I would. I wasn't jealous, not exactly. I wasn't entirely comfortable, either. It was more like watching a scene from a movie you didn't know you'd been cast in, and realizing the ending might change the way you see yourself forever. Time didn't move. Right that night, moments felt stretched thin and heavy, every second a reminder that there was no undoing this. When it was over, Sarah smiled at me, not a smug smile, more like relief, as if something inside her had been fixed. At least for now. David was quiet on the drive home, his hand resting on my leg, like nothing had shifted between us. But I knew it had. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling in the dark, trying to understand why I didn't feel broken. Maybe because I'd agreed, maybe because I'd been in control the whole time, or maybe because, deep down, I knew this wasn't a one-time thing anymore. I didn't see Sarah for 3 days after that night. It wasn't intentional on my part. Life just happened. Groceries, laundry, work, the quiet routines that usually fill the week without leaving much space for anything else. But in the back of my mind, the memory of that night was sitting there like a book left open. You can walk past it 100 times, but your eyes will always find the page you left off on. When I finally did see her, it was out front, both of us picking up the morning paper from our driveways. We locked eyes for half a second, and I braced myself for awkwardness, but it didn't come. Instead, she smiled, that same calm, confident smile from the day she'd first made her proposal. Later that afternoon, she texted me, "Thank you for trusting me." That was it. No flirting, no overstepping, just gratitude. Or at least, that's what it looked like on the surface. The following weekend, she invited me over for coffee again. We didn't dance around it this time. She said she didn't want to make it complicated. She didn't want sneaking around, jealousy, or guilt to poison the arrangement. It only works, she said, if we're honest, and if you always know it's on your terms. I listened, and maybe that was the moment I realized I wasn't as opposed to this as I thought I'd be. We set our rules, though we never wrote them down. She would always come to me first. Never to David directly. It wouldn't be often. Only when she felt like she truly needed it. And most importantly, neither of us would breathe a word of it to anyone. It was strange, but it also made a kind of sense, the way some unspoken agreements do. There was no awkwardness between us afterward, no hint that either of us was pushing for more than the other was willing to give. In fact, it was almost unsettling how normal it felt. Every so often, she'd send me a short text, a single question mark, or a simple, "Can we?" and I'd know exactly what she meant. I never said yes out of pressure. I said it because the decision was mine to make. David never questioned the arrangement, though I sometimes wondered how much he really understood. Maybe he didn't care to analyze it. Maybe, in his own way, he liked it too. Whatever the case, the three of us never spoke about it openly. And that silence was the very thing that kept it alive. Months have passed now, and nothing about our little street has changed, at least, not on the surface. Neighbors still wave when they drive by. Kids still ride their bikes in lazy loops around the cul-de-sac. The scent of freshly cut grass still drifts through the air on Saturday mornings. To anyone looking in, it's the picture of suburban normalcy, but I know better. And so does Sarah. Our arrangement isn't something we talk about in long conversations anymore. It doesn't need to be. It's woven itself into the quiet spaces of our lives, like an invisible thread, only the two of us can see. Every so often, she'll knock on my door with some casual excuse, returning a baking day task, asking about a recipe, and give me that look, the one that says, "Tonight." Sometimes I say yes, sometimes I don't, and when I do, David never complains. In fact, he seems lighter afterward, almost as if he enjoys being part of something that no one else in the neighborhood could possibly imagine. I've asked myself more than once whether this makes me a bad wife or a bad friend, but the truth is, nothing about it feels like betrayal anymore. It's something else, something that belongs only to us, outside the reach of gossip, judgment, or even explanation. Sarah keeps her word. She never pushes, never hints to anyone else, never makes it more than what we agreed it would be, and because of that, the trust, as strange as it is, has only deepened. We see each other at block parties, barbecues, holiday gatherings. We laugh, we mingle, we smile for photos, and no one has the faintest clue that there's a secret folded neatly between us, kept safe behind polite conversation and neighborly smiles. It's not a scandal, it's not a game, it's just ours. And for now, in this quiet little neighborhood, that's exactly how it's going to stay.